Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Monday morning, another Monday Messages from me, Rebecca. I'm a homeopath, I'm a QTT practitioner, I'm a holistic life coach, mentor, and all-round natural health advocate. And so just come in here on a Monday to share a thought or a practice or something that will stimulate us all to be more conscious of what is serving us and more conscious of the things that actually don't serve us very well, and most importantly, be able to affect changes where needed. So today, I wanted to talk about something that has come up for me locally where I live, but also I think is a kind of international, universal topic that I hope that will set you thinking today. So I wanted to talk first of all about the kind of world that I believe that most of us want to live in. And I like to believe that most of us will be happier, more content, more peaceful, living in a world that is less divided, that is a place of respect and kindness and compassion, and that we can celebrate our differences, but focus on the things that are similar to all of us, and that would be a beautiful world to live in. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think when most people are asked, that's what they would choose, but maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if that's not the case. Anyhow, so this local situation that came up for me kind of took me by surprise in a way, because basically I have been witness to so many people from all different walks of life, both in my practice and friends, colleagues, all repeating stories that might have slightly different details, but they're in essence the same thing. And that is that the recent refugee population housed in some of the hotels local to me, that there is a high incidence of aggressive behaviour, especially towards women, that women are not safe to walk the streets anymore, that there's lots and lots of fighting and all kinds of criminal behaviour going on. And I don't listen to gossip. I don't engage in gossip. I don't like repeating stories that I don't know to be true firsthand. And because I heard these stories from so many different sources, I kind of started questioning my own instinct, which is to disbelieve them and to dismiss them. And I started thinking, well, gosh, if I'm hearing this from so many different sources, maybe there is some truth in it. Maybe I should be more vigilant, and maybe I should be, asking my daughter to be more vigilant, for example. And then last week, by sheer luck, design, whatever, I had the opportunity to actually speak to somebody who would actually know categorically whether these stories were true or not. A member of the Gardaí, the police force here. And cut a long story short, I was assured categorically that none of these stories are true, that there is no truth in it. There is no foundation for these stories to be flying around, and that actually they were quite concerned about the level of fear and actually anger in some cases that was being caused by these stories whipping around. And yeah, I mean, that assurance was very welcomed by me. And I was really pleased that I had gone and got that from the horse's mouth, as it were. And it made me think about today's message. And this was essentially a message for everybody local to me. And I, really just know that if you're hearing these stories, please don't repeat them because they are just not true. But also universally, we do this without thinking about it quite often. We will repeat stories that we've been told about others or even about ourselves to ourselves. And basically, I wanted to just draw attention to that and to give you some good questions to ask when you have a piece of so-called information told to you before you repeat it. And to remember that if we all want to live in a world that is less divisive, that is about us uniting rather than dividing, to actually ask ourselves to just take a little beat before we repeat stuff, and ask ourselves, by repeating this story or even giving credence to it, is that contributing to the kind of world that we want to live in? Or is it actually taking us further and further away from it? And actually, just as an aside, the term Chinese whispers, I was interested in where it came from, and it actually comes from a racist point of view from the mid-19th century, that the Chinese were speaking a language that was deliberately confusing and unintelligible. And then that became the kind of generic term for stories that were inaccurate and inaccurately transmitted gossip. So that was just an interesting connection there. And this kind of repeated telling of a story that purports to be true, but feeds on our fears and our anxieties and our insecurities, is not benign. It has far-reaching effects, not only on the victims, or the people being talked about, in this case the refugees locally to us, but also it has consequences on the wider community, because it keeps us in a state of fear and anxiety, irrationally, unfounded. It's unnecessary. And when we're in that state, we do not have clarity over our thoughts or our actions and our behaviours. And that's not a good place to live when we're in that state. We don't think long term. We act out of fear rather than using our logic, our learnings, we forget what the bigger picture is, basically. So that what I wanted to do, though, is just create a little pause before you tell yourself a story about yourself or about anybody else. So the 3 questions to ask are, first of all, how do I know this is true? And if it's simply, well, because so-and-so told me, I don't think that's good enough, because how do they know? So maybe, if you're in conversation with somebody, you could even say, how do you know this is true? And you can start tracking things back. And the next question is, what evidence do I have to support this being true? Kind of the same territory, but where's your evidence? Did you witness it yourself? Have you been a victim of whatever you're talking about, how do you know that this is true? Where's your evidence? And the third question is, what purpose will it serve if I repeat this, either to myself or to others? And again, going back to that overarching goal of living in a society that is kind, that is respectful, that is compassionate, and that allows us to live in that state rather than a state of fear and panic and irrational insecurities, basically. And just a final thought, that the definition of a phobia is an irrational, unfounded fear. And we are creating our own phobias by perpetuating this kind of untruthful and unkind story. So I hope that makes sense to you all. And I didn't want it to sound like I'm, telling you off or anything, but it did make me think about the power of stories and the kind of stories that we tell about others and the kind of stories that we tell about ourselves. We have the choice. We can either choose stories that enhance us, that nurture us, that help to create a better place for us and for other people, or we can choose stories that actually don't. They actually keep us stuck in fear and insecurity, and therefore support us in quite irrational behaviour and irrational thoughts. So that's my message for this week and every week, is to just practice giving yourself a little pause for thought to ask those questions when you hear this kind of story being repeated. And yeah, that's it. And if only one person is able to think, actually, yeah, I don't know that that's true, maybe I won't repeat it, then that's a great thing. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any comments, do pop them in and I will get back to you. Thank you. Have a great week.